What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS3 tutorial, episode 13. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to get mod tools working on your jailbroken PS3. So you'll hear them referred to as a bunch of different kind of terms for them, like RTE tools, which is real-time editing tools, or RTM tools, which is just real-time mod tools or real-time modding, RPC tools, which is remote procedure calls. So you'll hear it referred to as a bunch of those different things, but basically it's just mod tools that you run on your computer that can send mods to your PS3 over your network connection, over your local network connection. So it can basically read and write to your PS3's memory remotely. You know, if a game doesn't have a mod menu or something, you can use mod tools. But even for games that do have mod menus, like, you know, the Call of Duty series, for example, mod menus are best at, you know, the actual in-game modding, whereas mod tools can do in-game modding, plus you can also mod stuff like your stats, change your name, your PSID, add modded classes, or change your custom class names to multicolored classes or something like that. So you can do a lot of stuff just while you're sitting in the lobby or in the main menu as well. So there's quite a lot of useful features that mod tools have that sometimes mod menus don't. So it's a good idea to be able to use them as well, especially since there's more mod tools for more games than there are mod menus and other ways of modding your games. So anyway, let's get into this. So before we get started, the first thing you need to know is we are going to be running mod tools on our computer. So, you know, there is a risk of viruses with these tools. Now, the risk is very slim. Most mod tools do not have viruses in them. It's normally just mod tools or antiviruses detecting tools as a virus because they're obfuscated, which just means that the code is being scrambled up to make it unreadable so that people can't steal stuff from, you know, somebody else's tool. So they obfuscate the code to protect it, and then antiviruses can pick that up as a virus, but it's just a false positive. So that's one thing to look out for. The other thing is console ID stealers. So some mod tools will have a sneaky console ID stealer hidden inside them so that when you connect to your PS3, they basically read your IDPS, your console ID, from your PS3, and then they upload it to a database on the server that the developer has access to, and then they can then resell your console ID if it's not banned to make some money, or they'll just use it on their own console to unban their own consoles, which will of course get your console banned much faster. So in order to avoid that, again, most tools are not going to have console ID stealers in them, but there are the occasional tool out there that will have a console ID stealer hidden in it. So what you can do is you can use programs like NetLimiter, which has a 30-day trial, where you can basically block any program from accessing the internet. So that can still allow it to connect to your console because that's over your LAN connection, while also blocking the tool from connecting to the internet. So if it does try and grab your console ID, it won't be able to upload it to the server because it doesn't have internet access. You can also use Sandboxy as well, which is a free tool that you can download that runs programs in a sandboxed environment that prevents them from connecting to the internet while still allowing it to connect to your LAN connection to connect to the PS3. So you have a few options there to protect you from console ID stealers. So anyway, getting into this, in order to actually get tools to work, so I've got a couple of mod tools here. So this PS3 multi-COD tool, so it works on all the COD games. It has mods for every single Call of Duty game on the PS3. And I've also got this GSC Studio, which allows you to inject GSC files, so mod menus. You can inject them straight from your computer directly to the PS3's memory, which is pretty useful. So I'm going to go ahead and install it. Again, this is just an example. These tools are just example tools, so you can use whatever other mod tools that you want to use. So we'll go ahead and install this, and we'll extract this one to our desktop as well. So we've got our mod tools here. So yeah, first of all, if we run Black Ops 2 GSC Studio, I've got a couple of mod menus downloaded as well for Black Ops 2. So if we go ahead and click Connect PS3, you can see there's two options of connecting to your PS3. There's TMAPI, which is Target Manager API, and then there's CCAPI, which is Control Console API. So most people will use CCAPI. I'll show you how to set up both in this video, starting with CCAPI because that's the most common one that most people use. TMAPI is like the original official like debugger API for the PS3 that can allow you to connect mod tools. So that's like the official one, and the advantage of that is basically the fact that it's more stable because it's more used for debugging and stuff like that. So it's more stable than CCAPI. However, it has a bunch of disadvantages. You have to be on DeX, you have to be on a wired connection, and you have to use a eboot.bin that is a debug eboot.bin for every game that you want to connect to. Quite a few issues there with TMAPI. CCAPI is a developer's attempt to basically copy TMAPI, but in a way that makes it more accessible. So it's not as stable, but the advantages of it is that it works on Wi-Fi and it works on KEX and DeX consoles, and it doesn't require any debug eboot.bin files either. So it has those advantages going for it. So that's the one we're going to install first because that's the one that's going to apply to most of you people watching this video. So let's get into how to install CCAPI first of all here. So in order to install it, we're going to download it from endstoneworld.com. If you go down to the bottom here, we're going to install CCAPI 2.8 Rev 7. We don't need the developer version, just download the normal version. When you download it, it comes as just a RAR file, so you can extract that using WinRAR or 7-zip to your desktop. And then we're going to open it up, click on the PC folder, and run the .executable. And then we're going to go ahead and just install this. You can create desktop shortcut. And there we go, it's now installed, and it now opens up. So next we're going to go to the PS3 folder, and you'll find a package file in here. So we're going to have to install this on our PS3. So to do this, you can copy it to the root of a USB drive that's formatted in FAT32 format, and then plug that USB drive into your PS3. Or if you followed episode 2 and you have Webman mod installed, that means you have the FTP server running on your PS3, and you can connect to your PS3 using FTP. So that's how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and run FileZilla, and then enter the IP address of my PS3 into the host box, and then connect. If you're not sure about all this stuff, again, it's covered in episode 2, the whole setup. So I'm going to go into HDD0 and then go into the packages directory, and then I'm just going to copy that package file in there. And then on the PS3 itself, we're going to go to game, we're going to go to package manager, install package files. If you put the package file on the root of a USB drive, then go into the standard folder and you'll find the package file in there. If you installed it to the packages directory on the hard drive, like I did with FTP, then it will be in the PS3 system storage directory. So there it is right there. I'm going to select it and install it, and install completed. Once it's installed, you can then delete it from the packages directory. Okay, so now that that's done, we now have the control console API showing up right here. So I'm going to run it. Okay, so then it's going to come up with some information here. Just going to click OK to continue. Then it's going to say, do you want to install CCAPI? So say yes to install it, and then OK to reboot the PS3. And one of the things you'll notice straight away when you reboot the PS3, up in the top right hand corner, you'll get your plugins loading. So Webman mod loads first for me, and then you should get a notification about the Control Console API by Endstone. There it is right there. So that shows that you do have the CCAPI running in the background, so it's ready to go. So at this point, we can go to Webman Games, load our game that we want to mod, in which case, in my case anyway, that's Black Ops 2. So I'm going to go ahead and run Black Ops 2. Okay, so obviously you can connect online, follow episode 5, I think it is, on how to connect to PSN. Obviously, this is just an example, so I'm just going to do this over LAN. So I'm going to create a new game, and we'll set up the game rules here so it's unlimited. So we're ready to go. So at this point here, we can try and connect. So from here, we're going to run Console Manager, and we're going to go to File, Add New Console, and then your console should be detected in here. So you can now double click it, and that will add the IP address into the IP address field. Then just give it a name. So I'm going to call mine PS3, click OK. That adds it right there. And that's all you have to do. You can right click and connect on Console Manager, and that's just to use the inbuilt features inside Console Manager. So it does have a few features here. It can give you the temperature readout. You can remotely shut down and reboot the console from here. You can also change the LED colors on the console, change the startup sound, send notify messages to your console, do things like dump the memory and get your console IDs and stuff like that from it. So we don't actually have to connect to it though, because we just want to have the console added in here, and then other RTE tools can then use this to find the console. So from here we can now run another tool like Black Ops 2 GSC Studio. And now we should be able to connect. So if we go to connect PS3 and select connect using CCAPI, and then there we go, our console shows up from Console Manager, and we can click connection, and there we go, success, connected and attached. So we're now connected remotely to our PS3. So I should be able to inject a GSC menu here. So if I go to editor and inject a compiled script file, and then add GSC to inject. So I've got the Jiggy menu right here, so I'm going to select the maps folder, and then that will load all the GSC files in those directories, and then I can inject list, and there we go, injecting done. So that GSC menu has now been injected. So yeah, there you go, that's it. That should hopefully work now. So if we try the other tool as well, we've got the PS3 multi-cod tool here. So just to show that sandboxy works, I'll run this one sandboxed. So if you were worried about any tools having a console ID stealer, you can run it sandboxed and it'll still work. Although there are some issues with sandboxed where if you run a tool that has an automatic updater, so it tries to update the tool from the internet and you're running it sandboxed, it won't be able to get the update, so it'll get stuck in like an update loop. So in that case, you can just run the tool normally and then update. And then when you actually want to connect to the PS3, close the tool and then reopen it in sandboxed. That way you're already on the latest version and you can start using it. So anyway, we go to the Black Ops 2 section here and see if we can connect using CCAPI. Okay, so we're going to select CCAPI and click connect. Select our console, click connection, and there we go, PS3 connected, PS3 attached. So we're good to go, it's working. Just to show that it works, we can change our gamertag to modded here. So set name, and as you can see, my gamertag has changed in game to modded. So that works. So let's start match and see if the GSC menu got injected successfully as well. Okay, there we go, we're connected. And we do indeed have the mod menu running, just like that. So, works no problem. So there you go, that's how you can use CCAPI to connect your mod tools. But I'm also going to show you how to use TMAPI as well. Okay, so for TMAPI, so I know most of you, some of you might just want to stop the video here because you already have CCAPI installed, and that's fine. And if you only have a KEX system, if you're not on DeX or you're not planning to ever convert to DeX, then yeah, you don't necessarily need to bother trying to set up TMAPI. But one reason, if you are on a DeX system, I would recommend having TMAPI set up, because it's just a good idea to have both, because then if you're having problems getting one working on a certain tool, then you have the other one to fall back on. Some tools might only have CCAPI, some tools might only have TMAPI. So if you have both of them set up, then you're always able to connect any RTE tool that you come across, basically. So yeah, obviously though, of course, TMAPI is more limited. It's more stable, but it's more limited in the fact that you have to be on DeX and you have to use a debug eboot in order to connect and use any mod tools on it. And also, it also requires you to be on a wired connection. So anyway, let's look at how we can set up TMAPI right now. So in order to set it up, what you're going to need to do is obviously have a wired connection. So the way that I would recommend doing it, plugging one end of an Ethernet cable into your PS3 I'm plugging the other end into your computer. So that way you can take like a laptop that's connecting to the router via wireless, and you can connect it with an Ethernet cable to your PS3. Or if you have a desktop that's on the same desk as your PS3, then you can connect an Ethernet cable between the two. And then from there, you go to your network connections in the bottom right on the taskbar, right click on it and go to Open Network and Internet Settings. And then from there, we're going to go to Change Adapter Options. And then we're going to right click on your Wi-Fi adapter, go to Properties, and then select Sharing, and then allow other network users to connect through this computer's internet connection. So check that box, and then if you have a drop-down menu, select the Ethernet adapter as the adapter you want to share the connection with. If you don't have a drop-down menu, then it will just share it with the Ethernet adapter by default anyway, so don't worry about that. So you can just click OK. And now the Wi-Fi connection that the computer's getting from the router is now being funneled down that Ethernet cable and shared with the PS3. And that gives us a direct wired connection between the computer and the PS3. You can also, select both of them and bridge the connections and use a network bridge. That also works as well, but network bridges tend to be a lot more buggy and have a lot more issues than just using connection sharing. So I would definitely recommend just using connection sharing instead. So the next thing we need to do is set up Target Manager, which is basically the same thing as Console Manager for CCAPI, except this is for TMAPI. So we're going to run Pro Debug for PlayStation 3. This is like the official debugging software for the PS3. Again, links for everything you need will be linked in the description. So we're going to untick these other things. All we need to do is install Pro DG for PlayStation 3. The other things are only if you're actually wanting to develop your own tools and stuff. Then you're going to want to probably integrate Pro Debug into Visual Studio. But if you're not developing stuff, you're just wanting to use the mod tools, then you just need to install the top one. So then we're going to click next, or OK, and wait for it to install everything. Okay, and then once it's done installing everything, it's going to ask you to restart your computer. So there you go, restart now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so now if we go onto our start menu and we search for Target, we should find Target Manager installed, which is our equivalent of Console Manager. So in Target Manager, we're going to go to Search for Targets and enter the IP address. So from this drop-down menu, you want to enter the IP address of your Ethernet adapter, because that's the adapter that the PS3 is plugged into with its Ethernet cable. It's plugged into the Ethernet adapter. So that is this IP address here for me. The way you can tell is just open up Command Prompt and type in ipconfig and press enter. And this will display all the IP address and network info for your different adapters on your computer. And for the Ethernet adapter, you can see that the IP address is right here. So you can just copy that IP address and paste it into this box. It'll be called local area connection, I think, on older operating systems like Windows 7. But with Windows 10, it's just called Ethernet, and that's the IP address right there. So enter that IP address into the IP from box, and then into the IP2 box, you're just going to put in the IP address. So as you can see, the IP address for my PS3 is the same, but it ends in 15. So we're just going to basically enter that IP address into the IP2 box and then click the refresh button, and that will scan all the IP addresses within that range, and then it should find your PS3. So as you can see, it found my PS3 here. For some reason, it's already added it into the group. For you, it might show up with a question mark the first time you do this, and if it does show up with a question mark, you just want to right click, and you'll have another option in here called Add to Group, and you're going to select Add to Group and then select the top option, or any one of the options should probably work, but just do the top option and then it should show up as an actual PS3. Once you've done that, you can then right click and add target, and then it will show up down here. Just click it down here. It says it's now available, and that's it. You've basically added it just like we did in the console manager. So now we should be basically ready. The only thing we need to do now is apply a debug eboot file to our console, so to the game we want to connect to. So luckily this mod tool, this multi-cod tool, has a button to download a zip file that contains a bunch of debug eboot files for all the Call of Duty games. So again, I'll link that in the description as well. So I want the Black Ops 2 multiplayer one, so we'll go ahead and extract it right here. So what we're going to do is we're then going to go over to our FileZilla and connect to our PS3. Again, episode 2 shows you how to set up the FTP server so you can connect to your PS3 over FTP. Of course, you can do this in multi-man with the file manager manually, but it's just quicker to connect via FTP if you have that set up. So we're going to go into dev HDD0, and then we're going to go to the game folder, not the games folder in uppercase, the lowercase game folder. And then we're going to select the title ID of Black Ops 2, which is Bless01717, although that's probably the US or EU version, so any other region versions will have a slightly different title ID. But this is the one for me. And then go into the USR dir folder. That's where you'll find the eboot.bin, and you just want to rename it to something different. So I'm going to call it orig_eboot for the original eboot, and then I'm going to copy the debug one into that folder. That way the game will use the debug one instead of the original, but I still have the original one there if I ever want to switch it back. So we're now done. We're ready to connect via TMAPI. So all we have to do is go back on our game. Okay, so here we are back again on Black Ops 2. And this time we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use TMAPI. So we're going to run the Black Ops 2 GSC Studio. So we're going to go to Connect, PS3, and this time we're going to select Connect using TMAPI. There we go, connected and attached. Now, if you're having trouble connecting Target Manager to your console, one issue is in the debug settings. So if you go into your debug settings and make sure that the release check mode is set to development mode and not release mode. So if it's set to release mode, then it will just refuse to connect to your console. But if it's set to development mode, then it will be able to connect to your console. This should be set by default. It's just only if you've maybe changed it at some point in the past and forgot to change it back. That can sometimes happen. And if you don't have the release check mode in your debug settings, then it could be because you are using the KEX debug settings instead of the DEX debug settings. So if you run the rebug toolbox and then change the debug menu type from KEX QA to DEX. And now all we have to do is go to editor, inject a compiled script file, add GSC to inject. We'll go back to the Jiggy menu because it worked. Not saying the other menu doesn't work, it just might have to be loaded in a different way where it has to be loaded once you're already in the game or something like that. But I don't want to risk it crashing again, so I'm just going to load the same menu we loaded last time and see if it works here. But yeah, you can definitely tell, well, maybe you can't tell because I didn't really show it that well, but you can definitely tell that TMAPI is faster. It connects significantly faster, you know, injecting, reading and writing memories a lot faster, whereas CCAPI is a lot slower. And also TMAPI doesn't require an external plugin that has to be running on your PS3 all the time, whereas, you know, in order for CCAPI to actually work, you know, that's how it works. It basically, you run the plugin, the CCAPI plugin on your PS3, and that gets loaded every time you boot up your PS3, just like Webman Mod, so that you can connect to it. Whereas TMAPI is like an official debugger API for the PS3. So as long as you're in DEX, it doesn't require any external plugins. It can just connect to your PS3 no problem. But obviously you do need those debug eboots in order to actually mod games, which is, you know, kind of annoying. Let's actually just show that, you know, programs like this actually work. Okay, there we go. So we're connected on TMAPI just to show, just to kind of have a better example here of how these tools work. As you can see, if I activate laser, you can see the laser turning on and off in game right there. Pro mod, so I can turn it on and off remotely. It's pretty awesome that you can basically mod your games remotely from another device like this. So that's basically it for this video, and that is all the videos I had planned for this series, for the PS3 jailbreak tutorial series. I've covered pretty much everything I think is worthwhile covering, you know, to help you guys make the most out of your jailbroken PS3. And if you guys think that I've missed something important, which is quite possible, you know, I don't know all the different things in the PS3. I actually only got into PS3 modding to start this series, basically. So it's perfectly possible I've missed some other really cool stuff on the PS3. So if there's something I haven't covered that you think I should, then definitely let me know in the comments down below, or send me a DM on Twitter or something like that to let me know. And of course, I will add more videos to this series if there's, you know, important stuff that people have requested I cover. Other than that, though, in terms of PS3 stuff, I will possibly be doing a tutorial series on the hen exploit, which is, you know, the homebrew enabler exploit using the hybrid firmware, which is for PS3s that cannot install custom firmware, so they cannot, you know, do everything that we've been doing in this series, but they can still do some of the stuff that I've covered in this series using that other exploit, which is obviously not as good of an exploit, but it does work on all PS3s, including the Super Slims and the newer Slim models that can't install custom firmware. So I might do a small series on that exploit for the PS3 in future. So if you're interested in that, if you have a PS3 that's a Super Slim, you can't install custom firmware, then keep an eye out for that series in the future. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.